For many people, his music registers as physical memory. A first festival, a late-night drive, a moment when life felt simple and bright. Behind that sound was someone who never wanted the scale that came with it. A kid from Stockholm who preferred the studio to the stage. This is the story of Tim Bergling. The world knows him as Avicii. Before the arenas, there was a bedroom in Stockholm. Not a professional studio, not a team of collaborators. Time, curiosity, and a belief that sound could be built from scratch. Tim grew up in a generation that didn't require industry permission to create. A computer was a studio. The internet was an education. He didn't attend prestigious music schools or work his way up through traditional channels. He learned by doing. He spent hours posting work online, listening to strangers critique his melodies, his kicks, his mixes, then revising everything. These weren't casual experiments. They were deliberate efforts to understand sound, to master the tools, to develop a voice. His tracks began to stand out. They carried an emotional quality that separated them from standard club fare. There was a tension between rhythm and longing. Online, he adopted the name Avicii. As the internet carried his music beyond Stockholm, the quiet kid began generating attention across Europe. His early work spread through music forums and blogs. What started as bedroom productions began appearing in DJ sets. The breakthrough developed gradually through accumulating momentum. A track passed from one DJ to another. A forum post turned into opportunities. Recognition built in layers. When Seek Bromance gained traction, it demonstrated what made him different. Clean melodies, emotional weight. A sense that dance music could function as narrative, not just release. He wasn't making music for the club alone. Then came Levels. The track exploded. It became unavoidable. Avicii was everywhere. Clubs, radios, cars, stadiums, spaces where dance music had never fully penetrated. The song crossed boundaries that electronic music typically struggled to cross. The success wasn't only the drop, it was the melody. He had this capacity to write hooks that felt universal, as if they had existed somewhere in the listener already, and the song simply surfaced them. People heard Levels and felt like they'd known it forever. The track opened doors globally. Festival bookings multiplied. Major labels took notice. What had been underground momentum became mainstream success. He didn't stop there. He pushed at the genre's boundaries. He began experimenting with structures and sounds that electronic purists considered risky. He blended worlds that audiences considered incompatible: country textures, folk energy, pop structure, and an electronic foundation. When he started working on Wake Me Up, combining acoustic guitar with electronic production, people in the industry told him it wouldn't work. He released it anyway. It wasn't spectacle. It was an assertion that emotion precedes category, that the feeling a song creates matters more than the label you put on it. The result was global superstardom. Wake Me Up became one of the most played songs in the world. Other hits followed: Hey Brother, The Nights, Waiting for Love. Each one carried that same emotional weight, that same sense of melody-driven storytelling. The schedule expanded, the expectations intensified. Every release needed to become an anthem. Every show needed to be the best night of someone's life. The tours got longer. The crowds got bigger. For the audience, it was everything they wanted. For Tim, it was more complex. The same sensitivity that made his music feel alive also meant he absorbed everything around him. The noise, the pressure, the constant demand to perform, to be on, to be Avicii instead of Tim. Fame operates on its own rhythm. Initially, it resembles momentum, a natural forward motion that feels exhilarating. Over time, it resembles machinery, impersonal and relentless. Show after show, city after city, airport after airport. A calendar indifferent to physical exhaustion or mental strain. He maintained hundreds of shows annually. Some years, more than 300 performances. The numbers are staggering when you consider what each show requires: travel, setup, sound check, performance, breakdown, travel again. Most people never see the space between performances, the parts that don't make it into the highlight reels or the festival recap videos. On stage, the music provided control. It was the one space where everything made sense, where the work he'd done in the studio connected with thousands of people at once. Offstage, everything was motion without rest. Hotel rooms that all looked the same. Cities he'd visit but never really see. For someone naturally introverted who preferred building songs in quiet, the performance circuit felt like inhabiting the opposite of his nature. He wasn't wired for constant public exposure. He didn't thrive on crowds and attention. He thrived on creation, on the solitary work of making something from nothing. The world expected Avicii to be inexhaustible. The brand, the music, the shows, all of it suggested infinite energy. Tim was a person managing physical strain, mental strain, and pressure without clear guidance on how to sustain it. He dealt with serious health issues: pancreatitis, hospitalizations, conditions exacerbated by the lifestyle, by the stress, by the pace that never slowed. He was candid about it in interviews, about how the touring was affecting him, about how he was struggling. Many artists reach a point, particularly young ones who achieve success early, where they realize success doesn't guarantee well-being. Sometimes it amplifies existing vulnerabilities: the anxiety, the self-doubt, the pressure to maintain an image that doesn't match who you are internally. The story shifts from career trajectory to something more fundamental: sleep, health, boundaries, a life under his own control again. Tim made a decision that surprised people who assumed the trajectory would continue indefinitely. He announced he was stepping away from touring, retiring from live performance at the peak of his career. He stepped away from touring in 2016, not because he had lost his connection to music, but because the infrastructure surrounding the music had become unsustainable. The machine had grown too large. People equate retirement with surrender, with giving up, with failure. They saw someone at the top of their field walking away and couldn't understand it. He was choosing a life that could actually be sustained, choosing himself over the expectations, choosing health over momentum. The announcement shocked fans and industry professionals. Artists don't typically retire at 26. They don't walk away from sold-out festivals and guaranteed income. Tim did. Back in the studio, the pressure persisted, but the environment changed. He was creating on his own terms. The goal wasn't to surpass the last hit in front of 50,000 people that night. The goal wasn't to deliver the next festival anthem on a deadline. The goal was to create, to rediscover the satisfaction that initiated everything, to remember why he started making music. At his core, Tim wasn't pursuing fame. Fame had happened as a consequence of the work, but it wasn't the motivation. He was pursuing the experience of completing a song and recognizing it expressed what he intended. That moment when you finish something and know it's right. He continued working on music. He continued collaborating with other artists. He continued building tracks. He did it from a place of choice rather than obligation. In that calmer environment, he remained Tim, still sensitive, still searching, still attempting to understand how a person maintains autonomy when the world has already laid claim to them. How you separate yourself from your public identity. How you exist as a private person when millions know your name. Tim Bergling died in 2018 at 28 years old. To address this story honestly requires acknowledging that fact without rushing past it and without turning it into spectacle. It deserves neither sensationalism nor avoidance. It deserves straightforward recognition. Success and suffering can coexist. External achievement doesn't resolve internal struggle. The pressures that come with fame can intensify vulnerabilities rather than eliminate them. After his death, the music continued to emerge. The posthumous album Tim demonstrated that his creativity hadn't vanished. It remained in fragments and melodies and ideas that people who knew him, who had worked with him, helped complete. The album became both a memorial and a reminder of what was lost. The legacy extends beyond the hits, though the hits remain significant. Levels is still played in clubs worldwide. Wake Me Up is still recognized instantly. His catalog has been streamed billions of times. He altered electronic music's structure. He restored melody to a central position in a genre that had often prioritized rhythm and energy over melodic content. He proved a dance track could carry genuine emotion without sacrificing power, without losing what makes dance music effective. He showed that genre boundaries were more permeable than people assumed, that country and electronic music could coexist, that folk and EDM could inform each other, that pop sensibility could enhance rather than dilute electronic production. The most significant aspect of his legacy may be the conversation his story requires us to have, about pressure in the music industry, about the cost of constant touring, about identity and mental health, about an industry structure that can mistake exhaustion for dedication, that can reward unsustainable behavior because it generates profit. His story forced conversations about artist well-being that the industry had largely avoided, about how young artists are managed, about what success should look like, about when it's acceptable, even necessary, to step away. Behind every anthem is a human being. Every artist whose music fills stadiums is also a person who needs sleep, who experiences anxiety, who struggles with the same fundamental challenges everyone struggles with. No song is worth a life. No tour is worth someone's health. No level of success justifies unsustainable conditions. When you hear that sound again, the one that fills a room and makes people raise their hands, remember the kid in the bedroom in Stockholm, the digital native pursuing a melody, the introvert who built something massive but never fully wanted the massiveness that came with it. Remember the name he used to sign the music, Avicii. Remember the name he was born with, the name his family knew him by, the name that represents the person behind the productions, Tim. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, reach out to local support services. In the US and Canada, you can call or text 988. Elsewhere, contact your local crisis line. Reaching out isn't weakness. It's a decision to choose life.